Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan and I were lucky enough to sit down with Mr. Anthony Trucks. He's a former NFL linebacker, motivational speaker, American Ninja Warrior, author, and we were lucky enough to meet him and watch him speak live at Brendan Burchard's event.
Yeah, so I talked to him several times backstage. He just spits fire, guys. Everything he said, the frameworks, the way he thinks about things, his unique perspective, and most importantly, his story of adversity growing up in foster care. This rep was unbelievable. Don't miss it.
So he went into depth about his childhood and being passed around from foster family to foster family, and it was a very emotional rep, but I think that we all need a little bit of perspective. We all are going through stuff, and when you realize somebody else has gone through maybe similar things or maybe far worse than you could even imagine, it really gives you motivation to realize that you can truly do whatever the fuck it is that you need to do. So we hope you take that from this episode, and we hope you enjoy.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. No. Geographically? Geographically. This is cool. So I would say make sure that pretty face is showing.
Yes, true.
They're going to want to see that thing. They're going to want to see that thing, Alan. That face. You good? Ready? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. Today we have a guest that we saw speak at Brendan Burchard's event. He blew Alan and I away. His story is next level. We're so excited to peel back the curtain. Mr. Anthony Trucks, how are you living, my friend?
I'm living amazingly, man. I have zero complaints. Life's good, wife's good, kids are good, body's healthy. So I'm all good in the hood, man.
Good, grateful, and that's the key to everything. Being grateful for what you got, right?
Yep, that's literally the genuine base of my humanity is grateful for what I got.
I love that. I love how you said the healthy body. You mentioned that right away. So
yeah,
we talked a little bit in the preamble here when we first gave you a call. We saw you at Brendan Burchard's event, as Kevin just mentioned, and you really did move us with how transparent you were about your upbringing and some of the challenges that you've faced. You were in the NFL, you were a Ninja Warrior. That's the really cool highlight stuff that a lot of people are seeing now. But we want to pull back how the polished product became polished. So I've read a bit of your book, and I really like your mantra, trust your hustle, which is very cool. So can we go into basically your childhood? And the way you started your book was really deep. The first memory that you had when you were 3 years old, if you can go through that, I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, man. So we'll just go right to it. My first memory of life, one that it's not always one I enjoy, but I think it's necessary for me to kind of reflect upon was hearing my name being called my mom in the front of, I was in the front of the apartment we lived in. She was in the back by the parking structure. I remember getting called, so I walk out back, and I'm 3 years old, but it's odd as I can remember the entire layout of the house, like what she was wearing. I go out back. She's standing there next to this strange woman I don't know. She's crying, and she kind of just leans down, gives me a kiss, and then hands my right hand to this strange woman. She walks me into this black Crown Victoria, which is it's actually why it's in the front of my book. She puts me in the car and doesn't really say much, but then I can hear my siblings in the back seat crying. I have three of them, two sisters and a younger brother. And then I just remember driving off, and it was my mom giving us all away into foster care. And it was like the first memory I can ever think of in my life. So the first memory I had is one that typically most people get to later in life, which is feeling lost, feeling unsure, feeling scared. Like we get to that point where we feel like we're on an island. So that for me was the entrance into life, was just pretty much being, put in this place where you're just wandering is what it felt like.
So you're a former NFL linebacker. You're an author. You're a life coach, a motivational speaker, American Ninja Warrior. You're all these things. And if somebody looked at you now, they would never believe your story, the perseverance that it took to get through your childhood to the person that you are today. I was watching one of your speeches, and you were saying that you had these nights where you'd wake up, or you'd be up at 4:00 in the morning, just cold sweats, wondering how you were going to pay rent, wondering how you're going to put food on the table. How do you get through that when you're, because that's a lonely feeling, Anthony, isn't it? Like, you think that your world is going to end. How did you get through that stuff?
Dude, like, it's tough because I think in the middle of it, there's always those places because we get to those points. And for me, I had this gym, this was after the NFL, after all my life, and a lot of parts of the story that we may get to later, who knows? But I get to this point where I'm now a man. I have 3 children. I have a wife. I have a mortgage to pay, and I'm served with this eviction notice at my gym because I haven't paid rent in 3 months. And now I'm supposed to be the sole provider. And at 4 a.m, I'm like, how am I supposed to take care of my family? Mm-hmm. And we, for me, that was my moment. For some people, it's like, how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to eat? How am I going to pay my car bill so I don't get my car towed? Like all these weird things. And I think in the moment we get to one of 2 choices we have to make. And this is, I guess, the best way for me to explain how I got through that is you have the one choice, which is this sucks. I'm going to sit on my hands. I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to wait for this to subside. I'm going to go on to something else, make a really good excuse for why this took place so I can sleep better at night, but close that door and open a new chapter. And that's one that a lot of people sit in because in that moment when you have those cold sweats, you're curled into a ball and like everything seems to just suck. The last thing you want to do is do anything. Like I said, you just want to sit there. You want to wallow in it. It just sucks. But the reality is if you do nothing, you stay there longer. Mm. And it's a weird oxymoron because you're like, well, I don't want to be here, but I don't want to do anything to get out of here. And for some people, it lasts for years. For me, I had a window of 2 weeks. If I didn't figure it out in 2 weeks, I'm going bankrupt. And I remember sitting there like, I've got to figure this out. I mean, there's no way through it but just to go through it. And 2 weeks later, honestly, just digging into my soul when nothing of me wanted to move or smile or do anything. I had to pull from places I didn't even know I had. And 2 weeks later, got out of the hole. We ended up about maybe 6 months later, moved to a big, beautiful new gym, went from making about $7,000 a month to like $27,000 a month 3 months later. Nice. Got out of debt. It was a crazy climb. And the reality is once you get like a motion and like motion moving, things kind of take care of themselves. The problem is people never get really moving. They try something, they give it a day and they kind of fall flat. But for me, it's like, I got way more in the line than just, how I feel. I got a family I got to take care of. And so in those moments, you dig into places you don't know you have until you dig into them. And little by little momentum gets going. And then all of a sudden you're out of the hole. And that's, a simplistic way, that is really what it is.
Interesting. So you just kind of described the pain-pleasure principle. In other words, I'm sure you've heard the phrase "no man's land," someone who's unhappy but not unhappy enough to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of times in life, we're in that place for a while until something traumatic does come our way. And then it's just like, okay, I cannot stay in this dark hole any longer because I'm in so much pain and I have people relying on me. So you think that that's kind of what forces people to change. And so massive action is the cure-all, right? So that's what Tony Robbins always tells everybody. Is that what you did? Yeah. You just said, you know what? I cannot sit here any longer. My family's counting on me. I'm going to take massive action. And to allude back to Brendan's event, that's kind of what Lewis Howes talked about. He said any direction is better than no direction. Is that kind of what you did? It is.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think it's massive action. I think there is action. 100% you have to take action. But the problem is the hardest thing to do is emotionally to take massive action because what you've done to that point, think about it. When we get to those places, it's because of actions we were taking. So there's also that fearful place of, man, what if I do the same thing and get right back here? So it's kind of this double-edged sword of like, well, I know I got to do something, but what the hell do I do? And to be honest, what my thing was is I didn't take like massive action. I took a simple action. And to be honest, the first thing I had to do was drop the ego. I think that is where a lot of people don't start. They start by going back and doing the same things they did that got them to the same place they are, and they don't drop their ego enough to say, I need help. And that was what, for me, I had to do. I said, look, I got myself here. I can keep working really, really hard. And I spoke about this at the event. The big thing is we get to that wall and it has this invisible door we can't find. And usually that door is a wall that's, pretty much built up of things that we know how to do or feel comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And when you can step back and say, okay, I can't do the same things. I got to do something different. Because we all know that, right? That doing the same thing over and over is, get the different results and to be insanity.
Yeah.
But we never drop our ego enough to ask for help to then do something that's outside of our typical character, which is uncomfortable, to get the result we're looking for. And I believe that's it.
Anthony, I'm getting all the feels of the event. Like I'm literally almost tearing up a little bit because this is bringing me back to that mindset of like, with you, when you were on stage, I was like, oh, anything's possible. And just anything is possible because I don't have nearly the trauma or the experiences, or I haven't had to overcome nearly the things you have. So when you're where you are now, what got you through those like dark nights of doubt? Like, were you ever like stuck in doubt? I for the longest time, Anthony, did not believe in myself. I had a really hard time visualizing a successful future because I felt like a failure in the present. So has that something you've dealt with, and can you shine light on that for our listeners?
Yeah. And this is one that I think that all guys will have this feeling, but few will express it. So keep this in mind. I get to the point where I've played college football. I've been on billboards. I've got shoes. I've got, this label. I'm the dude, right? I played professional football. So I'm in the NFL now. I'm in the NFL. I'm playing a professional football team. I have my jersey, my helmet, like I'm on the squad. And I remember every single day waking up. Now, granted, I'm in the highest level of the sport in the world. And I question if I belonged on the team.
Interesting.
I question if I could go out there and do what I was supposed to do. Like, so I think sometimes people don't realize that everybody has these common, like these voices, and it's really a lot of us to listen to them. That's what it is. We listen to them. Now, for me, it's like I always have in my head like this weird. I'm not like schizophrenic, but I think I'm talking to myself a lot of the time, right? So you get to this point where that voice is there. It's a normal, natural voice. So the answer to your question is, hell yes, I had that feeling, and I had it when I had, I guess, proven that I belonged there, right? But until you inherently believe that, nothing's going to come to the level you want it to be, like fruition-wise. And so I remember like the conversation I would have in my own head would be one where I didn't combat the voice. Because I think we think if we can talk back and forth, you'll prove something. I never believe that you'll actually get yourself to believe by just talking. You can affirm, it can give you a good subconscious, but you believe in yourself when you've done it. Yes. That's just it. Like, I'll believe it when I see it. And so I'll have these conversations in my head about, do I belong here? Can I do this? And the only way to solve it was I would go up to practice and I would do something that I believe few people do. And it's something I kind of came across in my mindset recently is like, I have to go on the field and I have to perform. If I can go perform, then I can make proof to myself I do belong there, right? But the problem is most of the time we're in moments where we're self-analyzing. And in sports, it's kind of like, imagine playing football or soccer or volleyball with a coach literally hovering around you in your ear the whole time. You're strict, you're rigid, you won't move out of your zone. Like you're playing with this person, like you're analyzing your process, like you take a step to the right. No, don't go there. Oh, go forward. Don't go there. Go backwards. Why are you doing that? And you start questioning yourself. So what I do in my life to be able to give myself a moment of pretty much proof is I say, I'm going to leave the coach on the sideline where the coach belongs. I'm going to go and in those moments, be the character or the player or whoever needs to be in that moment, whatever that moment demands of me. And then later on, once it's completed, I'll bring a coach in to analyze what I did. But I can never perform the way I really can if I don't have the coach on the sideline so I can let loose.
Interesting, because then you're going to always suppress your full expression and not perform at your best. That is so...
Yeah.
I love that analogy of the coach on the sidelines until after the game. Then you review the game and go, oh, okay, I screwed up here, here, and here in an effort to get better, right?
That's it. I mean, because you can make mistakes in the field. That's kind of sports. You go out there and just play loose. And then if you make a mistake, cool, watch the film. Don't do that next time. But a lot of us, we never let the coach stay on the sideline. We bring them with us. And then, of course, we're going to mess up. You got the stress of it.
I find that so fascinating. So and again, football is such a huge sport. I think 450 or so players in the NFL at any given time. So you're playing professional sports where everyone is taking this very, very, very seriously. You're still having self-doubt. So for all the listeners out there, like, we all struggle with self-doubt at times, and it's how you deal with it in those moments that really matters. And I think that coach on the sidelines thing until after the game is huge. Just being fully present in the moment and performing at your best, and then improving your best after the fact is absolutely huge. One thing I wanted to ask you about, I'm on your Instagram right now on my laptop actually, and it says
Yeah.
at the very bottom of your bio, taking shift seriously.
Yeah.
And I think you've already alluded to that a little bit when we talked about those dark moments you used to have and like how you had to let the ego go and just say, okay, here I am. Now, instead of just taking massive action randomly, I'm going to choose what shift to make. So in those moments of contemplation where you're like, wow, I really am not in a place that I thought I'd be, how do you find out which shift to make?
Oh man, that's I think it's kind of a longer journey than most people even figure out. I think I'm still on that journey, to be honest. And the reason that I that's at the bottom of my thing is I've actually recently had like some interesting conversations. This is something different from like HPA. Nobody even knows. So my brand right now is Trust Your Hustle. So I'll answer that question with pretty much the what I'm doing in life right now. So I've for the last 4 years developed a brand called Trust Your Hustle, which has been the root of me, the core of me, my story. I mean, everything has been there. And then I go to this mastermind with Brendan and Trent Shelton and Dean Graziosi and Lewis Howes and, Russell Brunson, all these amazing minds, Jeff Walker. And we sit there. And for the first time, I'm in this conversation talking about my life's work. And somebody says, I don't like it. I was like, so talk about self-doubt. You're in this room of guys who are the guys. And they're like, I don't like it. I was like, okay, so what do we do with this? So they're like, well, the message has to reach the messenger. And what they break down is like, I'm the messenger. Like, Anthony, you're the messenger. We love your story. We know who you are. We love how you speak. But the Trust Your Hustle, like, it's kind of catchy. It's quippy, but it's not really powerful. And people can't see themselves in it. So I'm like, oh, okay, let the ego subside for a minute. Let me not protect this space of me. Let me see how this kind of transitions and where it goes to. And they said is, over your life, what you've endured from, growing up in an all-white family and foster care and, going into sports, being a young father, like, getting married, getting divorced, getting remarried to the same woman, business, like all these things you've done, you've always navigated those identity shifts with grace. So like you've somehow figured out how to climb to the top, even though most of these things would break a lot of people. And so for me, what I realize is life happens to us either by force or by choice. Whether somebody passes away, you lose your job, you fall short of a goal you set, or because you're like, you know what, I'm stagnant. I hate this place. I hate this job. I hate this relationship. And you choose to move or don't. But what happens is if we don't take that shift seriously, then we end up in these like just potholes of life and stuck there while everybody else is driving by. And we sit stuck and stagnant because we never take the shift seriously and say, look, what do I got to do? How do I got to get out of here? And what do I do? So me, literally, I am in the middle of shifting my entire brand that I've built up for the last 4 years. Like that is, it's an anchor that I'm having to like anchor myself in. And one of the things that's really the big piece of it is identity. And it's something I'm in the middle of doing a ton of research on. And I believe there's some unique pieces I've even found that didn't make sense for myself until I started uncovering them. And so the aspect of like shift and identity, what I realize is because your question kind of was like, how do you get out of that?
Yeah.
Well, there's usually 2 steps, and most people don't do the first one, which they can't get to the second one if they don't. And the first step is I gotta pretty much accept this. If I don't accept the place I'm at, if I don't accept that I hate my job, if I don't accept that I belong in a better place, if I don't accept that I'm not okay with this, I'll never do the next step, which is adapt. So if I can first accept, I can move. But then now that adaptation is the hard part, and where people's identity comes into this, which is where a lot of the work is for me. Trust Russell's still in there. But what it is people are usually in 4 different places. And there's 4 different areas you can call, like think of like a box, like a box with 4 little sections. The top left, it's going to be lost, which pretty much says either I'm in a place in my life where I'm searching for who I am, I'm trying to figure out my identity, figure out what I'm supposed to do, why I'm here, what my purpose is. And the other side of it's I'm locked into who I am. This is my identity. This is who I'm going to protect it and adapt my life to, right? So if I say I'm the person who always loves to work on cars, well, I'm going to live my life in a way to where that's what people know me as. And if for some reason something attacks that or shifts that, I protect it. So if I'm the guy that, even if it's a bad thing, I tell myself, oh, I'm the guy that the party, everybody likes me because I'm the party guy and I drink. What am I going to do? I'm going to go out of my way to party and drink and pretty much ruin my life, right?
Yeah,
So
I've been there.
4 seconds. Yeah, a lot. I mean, I've been in a place like that too. So when you're in that area, if you're not searching for who you are and you're not locked into your identity yet, you're lost. You're wandering, you're stagnant, trying to figure out what the hell am I supposed to do? Why am I here? And then you get to this really tough place and you never move. So some people are actually scared to go looking because either the answers they find are ones that they don't know exist, or they are the ones they prospected or thought of, and it scares them, right? So that's the first section. Then you got a person who's like, you know what? I didn't go searching for my identity. What I did was I locked in because this is what my family did. It's what, my mom and dad said I should do, or it's what my friends group did. It's, I played sports, so I couldn't do drama, right?
Yeah,
It's
just
I
your
just
environment.
I locked in this identity, but I didn't search for what made me happy. So what I do is I'm closed off. I'm already here. And these are people who are like, I'm too invested in this. It's people who are in too deep. Well, I've gone to school for this. I've spent so much time. It's this investment bias. And those people, they wander because they're not truly happy, but they won't seek out something else because they believe they're in too deep. Then you get people who, what I call, are open. And open's a good place to be. Open's pretty much saying, which I'm actually this place right now. Open's like, you know what? I'm not locked into my identity just yet, but I'm searching to find out what I'm supposed to do, why I'm here, what I'm doing. And I really, you kind of figure out like, okay, am I going to try this new thing that's scary to me? Am I going to go talk to that girl, go to that club? Am I going to, go to this, this event and learn some information? Am I going to go to this seminar, whatever it is? You're open to figuring that out. And that takes courage to go somewhere and do something that's out of your comfort zone. It's a lot of courage. And a lot of people don't get there because of the courage it takes. But if you get to that place and you're open, it's like, great, I'm going to figure it out. And then the next step, I believe, happens, which is where a lot of people want to be, which is I'm found. I know what I love because I did searching to figure out who I am, what makes me happy. And then I locked into this. This is who I am. It's what I'm known to be. It's what, what I feel comfortable doing. And a lot of people get here, which is great. But then what most people don't realize is even when you get to that place of, I'm found, you can still fall into a place, which is where I'm at now, actually also falling back to open and saying, you know what? I was really good. I was locked in here, but hey, I had a kid. And life changed. So now I got to figure out who I am as a dad. I'm open to figuring out my identity as a dad. Or you know what? I was great in this career, but I fell out of love with that career. I want to do something else. I closed my gym to become a speaker. Way different world, but I was open to finding something new. So even when you're found, there's that next level of stagnation that happens when you're just like, you know what? I've been doing it for so long. It doesn't thrill me anymore. What if I open back up to finding something else? And that's what a lot of people never do. So even in open and in found, you can have this comfort. And so as I kind of roll through all my thought process and how I kind of figure out how to get out of that place, the first part's to accept where you're at on that chart. Where am I? Am I closed off? Am I open? Am I lost? Am I actually found that I want to open back up? And then from there, I got to adapt. And adaptation, usually the hard parts where the action comes into play, which is where the Trust Your Hustle curriculum I have actually comes into play a lot of the time. But really all it is like you talked about earlier, it's taking massive action. But a lot of it's going through finding clarity points of what do I want to work towards, where do I want to be, and then actually putting steps in action-wise to prove to yourself this is who I am in the future. Because a lot of the problem with people's inability to reach a goal is not realizing a simple logic. If you were the person that's supposed to have that thing, you would already have that thing. So we're kind of woo-woo, and like people are like, well, what do you mean by that? And essentially it's this: if you were the person that thought about money that way, or approached problems that way, or had this anchor and identity that the way that person does, you'd have that job, that girl, that body, that career. But if you don't identify as the healthy person, you're not going to get in shape because you're not anchored in that's who I am. Because when you're anchored in that's who I am, you will not let the rest of your life destroy that. And
Anthony, you're blowing me away over here.
Yeah.
You are blowing me away.
You got to take it and roll with it. But that's pretty much it. So when you get to that point of like, hey, I want to change something, the first part of it is, it's an exercise I actually do. Let's take yourself out of the character of that, the person of who you are, and say, hey, the person who has that thing I want, what do they think about when they get up in the morning? How do they analyze problems? How do they talk to people? How do they show up at work? How do they show up in the world? And you literally just draw a character and you compare yourself, say, hey, of my characters now, which ones don't I have of that? And then now what we do is now we go into life and life becomes the game. Put the coach on the sideline. You show up as that character in that moment and prove yourself to be that person. Then you can go home and be like, damn it, I am that outgoing, spontaneous, happy person. I just didn't know the person was there. Become more of that person. You'll have more of the things you want.
My goodness. You just, honestly, Anthony, you just explained the last 5 years of my life. That diagram is the last 4 or 5 years of my life. I was so lost. Then I became closed off and stuck because I felt like my feet were in concrete. I was stuck where I was. Yeah. And then I was open. I quit my job, started the podcast, linked up with Alan. Then
Nice.
we got locked in, and I feel like we're found now. And we're also open to changes and trying to grow. And it's the fact, yeah, that hit me right in the feels, Anthony. Right in the
Beautiful,
feels.
man. That's kind of thing. It's humanity. Everybody goes through similar experiences just in their own unique ways.
Do you so you got injured, right, when you were playing?
Yeah.
That's what happened to you. Do you think, I don't know what your beliefs are, what, universe, God, whatever it may be, but I firmly believe, and this is something I never believed in, but now I do. I do believe that everything happens for a reason if you use the reason. Do you think
Yeah.
your injury was basically your path to your actual purpose?
Yeah, I mean that is life. But I agree with what you're saying. Is we always have a plan that we want. I believe life has an amazing plan for us that we always mess up. Like we go into life and we try. Hey, I don't want to go there. This opportunity popped up, but I'm not going to go take advantage. I'm scared of what may happen, or I have this doubt around it, so we don't chase it. I believe, yeah, actions and things that take place happen for a specific reason. I am built as a human being to do what I do in my life now. I'm built to speak and talk and coach and love on people. And you can't do that from a helmet in the football field. Can't. So I believe yes. But if I was at some point to not switch my thought process around who am I without football, when it was taken away, then I would be stuck in life for a long period of time. And for some people, it's the same tie, but to a relationship. If I lose that woman or that man, who am I? If I lose that job or I don't make that kind of money, who am I? And so I believe that, yeah, life has these things laid out for us, and we have to make the most of what takes place. And all you really have to do is take this moment, see what you can pull out of it, and then do something action wise. And weirdly, things work out. I think that's the end result. As much as we have all these crazy things that people have figured out answers to, like the answers to life are always sitting in front of us. Like they're always there, but people rarely wise up to them.
You are blowing our mind. We looked at each other and smiled so many times. If you watch the YouTube episode, you'll end up seeing that the whole time you were talking with that framework was unbelievable. So you talk about stepping into that character, first finding out what you want, figure out what that character objectively would be like, and then stepping into that. So obviously you're a huge fan of Brendan, and Kevin and I obviously are as well. And he talks about the 3 words to describe that character.
Yeah.
And they can change over time. I have mine. I'm assuming you have yours, and then Kevin has his. Can you please share with the listeners yours? You mentioned in the preamble there was no fly zones. So who is that character for you right now?
For me, it's transparency, it's honesty, and it's hustle. Like
Love
it's being clear, like transparent of like who I am as a human. Because if I'm not transparent, like then people can't benefit or learn from anything I have to say. If I'm always sugar plums and buttercups, it's like, oh, well, that guy's always happy. Then from there, like I can have transparency, but then honesty, not only with the people I work with, but with myself.
Yes.
Like if somebody calls me on something, I got to be like, you know what? Honestly, yeah, you're right. Like I'm not perfect, because when you don't honestly open up and say, hey, this is something I got to work on, you never give yourself permission to get better.
Oh, that is so powerful. I posted today on my Instagram, I said, this is an exercise that I do with my clients. I say, go into a room alone, no good lighting, no filtered photos, just look in the mirror completely naked by yourself. And if you like what you see, that's great, but be honest with yourself. I said, look as if it's not you. Does that person look healthy, vibrant, energetic? Is that who you really want to be? Because we cover ourselves up with makeup and with nice clothes and with fancy watches and all this stuff. And I think it's so powerful. And you obviously talk about the power of physiology and fitness. And you mentioned this on stage. You basically said, like, you don't know what you don't know. In other words, you think your level of energy and vibrancy and in shapeness is a 7, when in reality that could be my 3. So can you talk a little bit about standards and what that means to you in your own life, especially when it comes to physiology and physical fitness?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm real big on setting my own scale. I think a lot of the time, people adapt the world scale. So the world scale sucks, to be honest. Like it's unattainable. You can't reach a 10 there. If you find someone who thinks a 10, somebody across the street would think that 10 is a 5, right? So if you leave the house and you have your standards set on the world standards, you're always going to come away feeling less than. And when you feel less than, it's hard to have the energy and the hope and the joy to enter your life, right? So first off, set your own scale. So for some people, it's going to be a 6-pack, rocked out abs, going to do a show, with their Ferrari and their tight sweatpants and high tops, right? That's those people. That's the world, right? But for Susan, the house mom of 5, she just wants to look good in a bikini with, not a bunch of rolls. And that's okay. But if she's comparing herself to the standards of, some woman on Instagram, the model, she's going to feel horrible about herself. And then she's not going to enter her life happy. And it sucks. So it's kind of the same thing of don't compare yourself. But no one goes past that and says, well, how do I not compare myself? Well, you can compare yourself, but compare yourself to your ideal scale. What is your ideal scale? Be okay with that. Set it. Like, you know what? If I can lose 10 pounds, I'm happy. Then what happens if somebody walks up and says, oh, Susan, you don't have 6-pack rocked out abs. Let me check my scale. Hey, Tina, my scale says I'm an 8, so go to hell, right? You can have your own scale. And I think that's the biggest piece of it. So when you have this standard you set for yourself, set a standard that you feel okay with so that you can go to bed at night feeling great. Don't make it a low scale. Like, make sure it's a push to get where you want, but you don't have to feel bad about yourself because you don't have what, 5 different people over there have. Be okay with what you got, but you have to first set the intention for what's going to be okay for you.
I love that. Anthony, I truly think that self-love and self-discipline are very closely linked. And I think it's because, a lot of people want a certain image or they want a certain result, but they haven't developed the discipline to get it yet. Can you speak on, obviously you're an elite athlete, you're an elite speaker, everything you do it to the highest degree. So your level of self-discipline has to be ridiculously high. Can you speak on how you achieve that and how somebody who's struggling can achieve that?
Of course, definitely. This is a fun one. So let's look at it this way. Somebody that you love, let's say it's, let's say a mom, right? Let's say, Mom, I love Mom. You love Mom because you respect Mom. Mom's done some things, been around, whatever it is. There's a certain level of respect that's there. Therefore, love is developed. And if I love this person, I'm not going to let that person down. Even if you respect them, right? If they ask for something, I'm going to be there. I'll go out of my way to change something about my day to serve that person in a place of love and give them what they need. But here's a problem when we take that and look at it from an external to now an internal place. If I somewhere on the lines was not disciplined, I didn't, I cheated on my meal when I shouldn't have. I missed a workout, whatever it may be. Now what happens is you have a conversation with yourself and you lose a little bit of respect for yourself. And now that I have less respect, it's a little bit harder to love myself because I don't love somebody I don't respect. And so now that I don't respect or love that person, it becomes this downward spiral. And now it's hard for me to get to that point like you're talking about if I have the self-love that drives me to be able to excel. So what I look at is, and I would say it sounds a little bit selfish, whatever you call it, or conceited, but it's not. I love myself enough to not let myself down.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot.
And it comes from the way that I've disciplined myself. So I look at Anthony, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years from now and what that Anthony put into place, like the work he did, the way he showed up, the hardships he overcame, the guy who went through that gym process. And I respect that Anthony enough to today still show up for that Anthony. And because I respect that person, I do certain things for myself that allow me to love myself still so that when I pursue a new goal, it's like, what, Anthony at that level, he's not going to expect anything less than elite as an athlete or elite as a speaker or elite as a coach, because that's what that Anthony deserves. And he needs to make sure he pushes to that. So Anthony right now is going to serve and honor that guy. And so if you can just stay disciplined in your small actions, it's much harder to let a person down that you love and respect.
Oh, that is so powerful. I posted not long ago a quote that I think you're going to love because you kind of just articulated this better than I ever have, by the way. I said, if you had a friend who broke as many promises to you as you have to yourself, how much would you value that friendship?
Yeah.
And you posted today on your Instagram, expecting things to change without putting in any effort is like waiting for a ship at the airport.
Yep.
What do we tell to people right now who want to get in shape? Because this is a big one. And obviously, most of the people that I talk to, fitness ends up coming up because I love fitness. I live and breathe it every single day. You obviously do too. And I have so much honor and respect for that because I think we set a very low standard in this country and in this world for fitness.
Yeah.
And I think that it's up to each of us to lead by example and really raise that standard for everybody. So for someone who is in that place where maybe they're not really loving who they are right now fitness-wise, how do they get started? Because a lot of times I just think they don't know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't. And the thing is people, like I talked about at the event, there's just barriers. There's, what time, do I have time to do it? How much it's going to cost? Do I have the money to do it? I don't want to look stupid. And then a lot of people, it's kind of the same vicious cycle of, they don't like the feeling of starting something and falling short of it. And if they don't believe they can push through this time, they're not going to have the same feeling. So they're not going to push. Like if I messed up in the past, I don't want to put myself in a position to feel like that again. So why do it again? Right. I would much rather just sit here and not invest time. And so a lot of the problem is people, but they're not realizing they're setting themselves up for failure. It's that same feeling of, helplessness. If I feel like I have no control over a situation, then I'm not going to do that thing again because I'm going to inevitably fail. I don't want to feel that, so I'm not going to do it. So I think when it comes to starting, it's like I talked about before, it's first accepting. You got to honestly accept the problems that you've had that have stopped you in the past. So my wife has a lot of friends that are always asking her for fitness tips and everything. And here's the problem. Every single time one of them reaches out to her, a lot of them are like, I don't eat that bad. I just can't seem to X, Y, and Z. Or, I get to the gym, every so often, but I still can't seem to lose weight. And what they're doing is they're halfway accepting. They're saying, well, I'm not eating, perfectly, or I'm not going to the gym enough. But what they should say is, look, my eating habits suck. Let me accept that, because now I give myself permission to change that. Or my exercise habits, they're horrible. I go to the gym and I watch my phone while I walk on the treadmill. It's bad. Let me accept that. And until you accept that, you never give yourself permission to push out of that comfort zone and become the new character we've been talking about. So you have to figure out, hey, what does that person do? If you want to get started, same thing I talked about. What does that person do? You know what they do? They eat healthy. They take pictures of their food and post it. They exercise and they take pictures to show proof, or they give themselves accountability partners by reaching out to somebody. They don't just do it on their own. And so I think the first part of working out first is to realize, hey, what stopped you in the past that realistically you need to change? And then from there, you develop simple habits around getting yourself in shape. And I think some of the basic ones are first, get an accountability partner. 80% of people who have an accountability partner reach their fitness goal. 80%. It's crazy. I didn't even know it was that high. I just did some research a couple months ago. I was like, damn, that's all you need to someone. And it doesn't be a person that works out with you, just somebody you can touch base with, right? And it may not be your spouse, because sometimes your spouse doesn't care. Like, hey, Annie, go ahead, go to the gym. I'm not worried. I'm going to sit at home and drink my beer and watch my football game. Right? That's happening a lot. So the person you get to have is in the background doing that. And then from there, the accountability piece goes in place. But I think one of the biggest ones is everybody only looks at the scale for progress. And if you only look at a scale for progress, you're going to fall short every single time.
Yes.
Like the scale in and of itself, there's so many variations from day to day. Like let's say today, I'm a guy and I'm trying to lose weight. And I do my workout, I hit my weights, and I worked out in the morning today because, I could get in before work. But then tomorrow what I do is I come at the back end of the day. I've already had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then I look at the scale and I'm 6 pounds heavier.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, I suck. I'm a horrible guy. Man, I'm just going to go home and eat my Cheez-Its.
Oh, you and those Cheez-Its, man. I love it. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Exactly. So what it does is now it becomes this negative downward spiral. So I ate my Cheez-Its. I had a bad meal. I don't know why I'm going to go to the gym again. I'm just going to go and hang out, right? And so now we go in this negative cycle. So what I believe we need to do is set other areas to be these measuring points, because maybe you didn't lose weight, but maybe you've increased your bench press, your back squat, or your mile run, or your sit and reach, whatever it is. If we see any little progress anywhere, like literally anywhere, we feel great.
Yes.
You get a little dopamine dump, you get that serotonin pumping in, like I feel good. And now because you have that, we seek that. Our brain actually wants more of that. And the pathway we found to get that is exercise. So what do we continue to do? Exercise.
Positive addiction.
So start by having something that's a simple, trackable thing outside of just the scale, which is so fickle.
I talk about that all the time, Anthony. Thank you so much for saying that. I am a testament to what you just said, because I am trying to get lean for 2 photo shoots coming up. And I am telling you, I worked out this morning and I stepped on the scale at a different time, and I'm 194, which is almost as much as I was when I was bulking. But I know for a fact, looking aesthetically in the mirror, and taking progress pictures as well, I am definitely leaning out. So it's not just one measurement, and I'm getting stronger as well. So it's very critical to look for progress. Progress is going to motivate you, and lack of progress can also motivate you, but make sure it's not just the scale. I love that.
Yeah.
So I loved, Anthony, that you said accountability partners, especially with fitness. But I think that when it comes to life, your goals, your dreams, your purpose, a lot of people are afraid to share their deep, dark dreams, their hopes. And I feel like if you are willing to share what you want most in this world, if say you have an accountability partner for your dreams. So you said who was in your mastermind. the next level of next level people. Clearly, you only surround yourself with people who are going to give you the truth. They're going to help you, and they're going to be a positive influence. We always say that, and this isn't my quote, obviously, this is somebody else's, but you are the sum average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. How can people that are struggling, because Alan and I constantly have people that are reaching out and they say, well, my family doesn't understand what I want. My group of friends thinks I'm crazy. And I always say, like, okay, but you're in a good spot because that means you're actually onto something. But what advice can we give to them so they can actually like link up with some dreamers, some people who have some next level vision, and so they can get the support they need to get through these tough times?
Yeah. Well, I think first you have to stop looking for the comfortable way to create that group. So I get this question a lot also. People are like, well, I got to find that group of people. Do you have any good masterminds or anything like that? And the truth is, a lot of people, you can see other people doing things that you want to do. We see them every day online. But what we think is, you know what, I'm not at that person's level yet, so I don't want to reach out to that person and talk to them. I'm going to wait until I'm at that level. Then I'll talk to that person. And the reality is that you're never going to get there if you don't have that person there. How are you going to climb the ladder without someone, dropping the ladder down, so to speak?
My goodness, Anthony, killing it. Keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good, man. You're good. So one of the things that I was first is a couple levels of what I do. So I have in my circle, those are the guys I talk to. We're in messages and stuff. There's always that good punk there, right? But to be totally honest, there's you have to have, I think, 3 kind of people in your life, and I think these 3 people have got to be incredibly respected by you. You can't go after someone just because they've accomplished something. You have to respect who they are and how they accomplished it. So first person is someone that's kind of in the area of what it is you want to do. They do what you do. You respect them. You can look to them to give you guidance in your area, right? For business people, it's like, who's a person in my field I respect that I want to talk to and get insight from? Second person is someone kind of in, similar area, like let's say it's business. They're in the same area, but they don't do what I do. If it's fitness, I want to find someone, if I'm on a bodybuilder, maybe I find somebody who's a bodybuilder just to get their take on stuff, because they give you a different perspective you wouldn't see on the same thing it is you do, right?
Beautiful.
The third person, I think, has nothing to do with anything that almost like they don't even give a damn what you do, because they'll give you the most unbiased perspective ever, and you need that. And so in my life, I have people who are in my field, like the guys in my group, that I always talk to. They're doing exactly what it is I'm doing. Then I got a buddy who lives out here with me, does nothing like I do, but he's still in business, and he gives me incredible perspectives. Like I'm able to get insight in ways I never would have thought because he sees it differently than me. Then I have my best friend. He couldn't care less what I do, to be honest. Like it's the weirdest thing. Like I'll tell him things and his mindset is completely backwards from mine. And it's okay because he gives me this perspective that's unbiased, but allows me to see myself differently within the same situations. And so I get this really cool rounded perspective of what I should pursue. It's not that my buddy's negative, but he's really direct and gives me perfect, pretty much insight for me based on things that make me have to pull my ego back and be like, you know what, dude, you're right. And so I think we are seeking that group out. First off, look for those 3 kind of people to begin with. Someone who's like in that area does something similar, someone in the area but does something different, and someone has no ties whatsoever to what it is you do. My buddy's a police officer. Like he has no ties to what I'm doing, right? Then here's what I recommend. I had a person that's a client of mine ask me, hey, Ant, man, I live in Austin, Texas. I'm trying to figure out, how do I create a big group and get to meet people like you're meeting people? What do I do? I say, well, do you know of any people in your area that maybe do what it is you do, own businesses, or they have facilities, maybe they work out themselves? Like, have you ever seen anybody? And they're like, yeah, but I don't know them. I said, perfect. So there's nothing that somebody has to pull from you, or there's no expectations. What you do is you go out of your comfort zone, you find somebody who you respect, and you pretty much go the route of talking to them saying, look, I know you don't know me and I don't know you. What I realize is human beings work better in relation, and sometimes having a group of people that can connect on a topic that everybody loves when, most people around them don't care. Like you talked about, some people's mom doesn't care, spouse doesn't care, friends think they're crazy. Well, there's someone just like that out there, but both of you are so, cautious and stick to your little bubbles and your tunnels, you never find each other. So because you don't find each other, you never benefit and grow. So usually when you find those people who are doing what you're doing, either they've already been there and can provide great insight, or they are there right now. But it takes you going out of your little comfort zone and bubble to approach them, to talk to them and say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing, where I'm at. I don't need your support, but I think we could possibly just have conversations that might spark some, some benefit for both of us. Would you be interested in, having a quick little mastermind? We'll meet maybe once every 2 weeks on the phone, just kind of wrap and see what's going on. So that provides you an ability to create a small little group, could be physically in your town or it could be online.
My goodness, that was gold. That was gold. So
Use it.
we're going to use it for sure. So one thing, we talked a little bit about your childhood, and I feel like I want to give the listeners, if you're comfortable with it, more perspective of how you bounced around. Like, so that was your first memory. Your first memory you remember was getting in the back of that car.
Yeah.
What happened after that? Because everybody that hears this is going to be like, my goodness, Anthony is put together. He has all this knowledge, all this experience, but I want them to see, like, early on, this was not the case. Like, this wasn't the case at all. So can you give us a little vision of what foster care was like for you and the things that you went through, the things that you had to overcome?
Yeah, man. So when I was first given away, the problem is at that time in the foster care systems, I guess you call it those days, what you pretty much have is like I'm called a paycheck. A lot of the people, there was no social media, there's no internet, no videos, there's no cell phone. So like people just treated the kids poorly. Like the houses I went to, they were bad. They'd starve me and they'd beat me. Like there's one house I would get put into a chicken coop and have to chase the chickens around at like 4 years old. And if I didn't catch a chicken, I didn't eat dinner that night. And they just did laugh and play and joke. And it was like, I'd have to steal food and hide it to be able to eat at night. And then I would get caught for having the food and get beaten. And so, I mean, this is, between the age of 3 and 6, I got a lot of craziness. Then at 6 years old, I ended up in the family I'm with now. And that was at like when I said the 6th house I'd been to within a 3-year period. And it was unique because I'm now the only black kid in an all-white family in 1986 in a town called Antioch, which to be honest is not very diverse at the time. So there's a lot of weird stuff I'm navigating and battling. My dad at the house, a drunk, and it's just a lot of craziness. And my adoptive mom was adopted at 14. She was supportive. She loved me. My real mom, though, she was a trip, man. So when you're a kid, all you know is you want to go to your mom. You don't yet know that your mom's not right for you. And just like us as, even adults, we want to go to that person. We want to go to that job. And we know that we want to be there, but we don't quite yet know it's the wrong place for us to be. Mm-hmm. And so we're fighting for something we should be getting rid of. And it's a really weird place. And so it took me 11 years to finally realize that my real mom was horrible. We'd go to these visitations she wouldn't show up to. And so every night after a visitation, which at first was supposed to be every 2 weeks, and then it was every month, then it was every 2 months, 3 months, every year. And every time I'd show up looking for her to be there, and my siblings had a different dad. All 3 of them did. I didn't know my dad. He was gone. And my mom was my only part of the family. So we'd show up to visitations. Their dad would show up. My mom wouldn't. I have to watch them play with their dad. And it would be heartbreaking. And then I would go home, and never fails, every time she'd call me at the house, hey, sorry I couldn't make it. And she'd make up some crazy off the wall excuse. She was an astronaut. She owned Apple. She was, a genius with men. So like all these weird things. And it always closed off with this. Hey, pack a bag, be by the window at 8 o'clock tonight. I'm going to come pick you up. We're going to drive off. Now, granted, I'm this kid and all I want to do again, go home to mom. I don't realize she's not good for my life. And I would sit there by a window till like 9:30, 10, and I would just see every car pass by and my heart just go up and then crash down. I'd end up falling asleep, crying myself to sleep. I'd wet the bed every single night after that. And I'm talking up to 14 years old, I wet the bed and I had no control over it. It was just like trauma. And I finally got into a situation where I realized for the first time, like, I need to get rid of this person in my life. And I made a decision. I got fed up with it. I got in front of a judge and I severed rights and I opened my doors for life, right? So like my life was just a bunch of crazy hiatus of just ups and downs. And that was just at 14. It gets crazier too. But up to that point, a lot of it is, for me, it's just survival. We all have our own moments of feeling similar, of wanting to fight for something we shouldn't be fighting for, of feeling like we're being lied to by people and betrayal. Like these are not things that you have to go through my situation to feel. You just have to be in your own life and look at things you've dealt with or you've put up with that you really are like, you know what, this sucks and I don't deserve this. And you finally choose to make a change like I did. I made a change. And then that's the moment when life will open up. Because that moment, standing in front of my mom in a courtroom, telling her, I don't want you to be my mom, like that's hard. That's really hard. And that was my moment of making a decision. But for some people, it's walking out of their household saying, you know what, you're not treating me right in this relationship. Or it's walking out of the job saying, you're a horrible boss. Or it's looking in the mirror and saying, you know what, you're not treating your body right. Change something. And those moments are there for all of us.
Thank you so much for being vulnerable there. I think that we've had Isabella Picard on. She had the right side of her body paralyzed. Eric LeGrand was a Rutgers football player. He was paralyzed in a football game. And when we talk to these people that are now our friends, we realize like we don't have an excuse. Eric LeGrand does social media with his mouth.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want the listeners to hear that, like, maybe right now you're feeling sorry for yourself because you're going through some shit, or maybe your past was terrible, but you can either use it as fuel for your future, or you can use it as an anchor to hold you back. And clearly you use it as fuel. So I appreciate you being super vulnerable with us there, Anthony.
No, man, you're very welcome.
Anthony, I really appreciate that too, man. I go back to a quote that I heard once constantly, because Kevin and I both grew up with single parents, and we had our own, childhoods that had their abuses for sure. But the quote that I always go back to is that your adversity is actually your advantage, because it gives you the emotional muscle to go and do extraordinary things that ordinary people just cannot do. So the fact that you were able to come through all of that, Anthony, is truly unbelievable. I mean, it's amazing. And you're such an incredible person, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Kevin was flagging me that we only have 10 minutes.
Yeah,
left.
we got 10 minutes. So we each like to ask a question that we ask every guest, and then I want you to be able to plug away your website, your programs, your gym, where you're speaking, all that happy jazz. So you want to do your question first?
Man.
Sure. Go ahead.
So the question that I ask every guest, basically I wear a necklace/chain, whichever you want to call it, around my neck with a North Star. It's the brightest star in the sky. It's unwavering. It's constant. It never moves. And I do believe that, this whole podcast today, we've talked about how much you evolve and change and grow and adapt, and I love all of that. But I do believe there's a part of us that does never change, that's eternal. What about you never changed?
Oh, man. It's a phenomenal. I've never heard that question of all questions. Let me think. You know what? I think if I'm looking back at Anthony, I don't know if I could say as a kid, but I know from like levels of, let's say, around high school age, what never changed for me was a realization that there are moments in time that suck, and I hit a bunch of them. But there's always been this anchor, this drive to get to the moment past the pain. If I always look at a memory of life when everything sucked, I can always picture a moment past it where I was joyfully happy and excited. And I think in those moments, what changed for me is always the perspective of this too shall pass. Like, I don't know if it's a trait or it's a thought, but there's no place in my life I can look back and say, you know what, after that point, I wasn't happy. Like, I was always somewhere joyous after it. And so if I anchor to that reality, I can allow myself just the peace and honestly, like the permission to start seeking a way to find that peace again. So, I mean, that's more of like my thought. I think other people can anchor to that too. It's a perspective thing, man. Life, that's what I learned years ago. I love this one. A moment has no meaning except the meaning we place upon it.
Love it.
So anything we're doing, no matter what it is, will have the meaning you place upon it. I don't care if somebody cuts you off in traffic or, someone passes away. There's always a meaning behind it. And if you change the meaning, like truly in your own heart, change the meaning, you can create whatever you want for your life.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I have something up on your Instagram right now. It says hardships make life beautiful. That's something that you posted. And one thing that I want to bring to the listeners, you, Anthony, plus several other guests that we've had on that Kevin mentioned that have been through unbelievable hardships. I mean, just serious adversity. I think they tend to be more vision-oriented. And this is something that I've recognized in my own experiences. Because like you, when I was in my darkest moments, when everything seemed to be crashing down, and I mean literally life and death situations in my childhood, I also went into the future and saw joy. I in my darkest moments, that's what I do. I go into the future and I see life as not horrific because what was around me was horrific. And I think that creates a type of person with a very strong vision orientation and future orientation. And those are the leaders of the world. So if you're a listener out there right now and maybe you do have a pretty comfortable life like Brendan Burchard talks about, there's nothing wrong with that. But maybe you haven't developed some of the really strong vision that only serious turmoil will create, and you're going to have to proactively start doing that. So I wanted to bring that to the listeners, and now Kevin's question.
How am I supposed to
next.
follow that up?
Let's see how it goes.
How am I going to follow that up? All right, so Anthony, I bet you if I asked you this question 6 years ago, your answer would be totally different because you were doing different things. But what do you want to accomplish before you die?
Oh man, it's a weird one. What's funny is I heard Gary Vee said this like recently, but I think I would say this since I was like in middle school. and this is the statement for me. So I came into this world and nobody was there, right? I had no mom who took care of me. My dad was MIA. Like I didn't meet him until I was 20 years old. And so a lot of my life when I entered it was, just me being solo. And what I realized was at the end of my life, when everything's said and done, I want to make sure I've reached enough people at a heart level to where they come to see me off. So I want to have an incredibly huge funeral. I want it to be like a television event, although it won't because I'm not the president. But the idea is like I want to actually genuinely reach a lot of people's lives because I have a choice. I had a choice all my life: is do I become a statistic of the kid who had this happen to him and the world's evil and I hate the world? I'm gonna get back at the world, which I could easily do, and so many people in my position do that. Or do I want to be the guy that shifts something for when I leave, people are like, holy crap, that human existed. Like that's a unique person, and so that's my drive, that's my purpose, that's my push, and so I want to accomplish touching enough people's lives in a real way, like a genuine way, so that when I'm, gone and away from this place, that people come and celebrate, the time that we spent and give me respect for what I did for their life. So I guess that's what I want to accomplish. I don't know if it's something I'll be able to ever see. I probably won't. It'll be odd if I do. But that's it, man. I think I look at life every day genuinely as like a gift. My wife she loves me for who I am. Like, they say you love the things about a person, you also hate them.
Yeah.
Like she loves that I'm happy, but she hates that I'm always happy. But it's always this joyous piece for me of the opportunity of the day. And people hear this all the time, and it's not new information, but people rarely emotionally connect to stuff. Your brain hears it, your heart doesn't hear it. But I'm grateful for every moment I got, even the ones that suck, man. It's the only way to give me a balance of what is great. And I think the sucky parts make the future positive parts that much better. But I just anchor on like every day genuinely as a chance to just do something cool, experience something great. Because at the end of the day, I think life is it's a collection of experiences, and I want to create more good ones than bad ones.
Well, from the bottom of my heart, I was lucky enough to be sitting in the front row on the left side of the room when you were on stage, and I will tell you that you definitely moved me for sure. You touched me, and you being on this podcast with us today, telling your story from where you were to where you are, I think that it's going to touch the listeners as well. And we appreciate you so very much. I want you to plug away. Where can people find you on Instagram, Facebook, your programs, your gym, all that happy jazz?
Oh, man, you can find me on Instagram. That's pretty much it. You can go to my website, it's anthonytrucks.com. But if you go to the Instagram, it's at Anthony Trucks. I don't believe that that everything I talk about is meant for people to work with me. So if someone's listening and they just want to follow along and listen to the weird stuff that comes out of my head, that's all perfectly for you. But if you actually are like, hey, I want some help with some of the things I talk about, you'll find more than enough ways to be able to work with me. If you just hit the link on my Instagram bio, you'll find that. But that, for me, it's like, if someone actually wants to invest in themselves being better with me, I am 100% in love with that because it gives me a chance to spend time with people to really get the results. But if someone's not there right yet and someone just wants to be able to follow along and get that good little bump of, feel happy for the day, by all means, find me on Instagram and take it from there.
Love it.
Anthony, thank you so much for coming on. From when I saw you on stage to when we spoke and took some photos together at the event to now, and to bring this to the listeners too, a super, super fast story, just a minute. I was on Facebook and you like audio messages, and as do I. Kevin hates them.
No, not a fan. Not a fan.
If you send Kevin audio messages that are more than a minute and a half, he will not listen.
I will listen to yours, Anthony.
But I was having a lot of trouble. I was in a little bit of a dark place after the High Performance Academy because that was such a high for me. And you helped me tremendously through that because you said, I basically told you I'm feeling funky. And you said that makes sense. That's because you grew and you changed and you transformed. And when you go back into an old environment after that transformation, it's supposed to feel funky. So the fact that you answered that question, what do you want to accomplish before you die? And you answered that way. You definitely are living, breathing proof of that, man. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And to end with a quote from your book that I put a note on my Kindle of, a life lived in service to others is the rent we should pay to live on this earth. I think you're living, breathing proof of that, brother, and I appreciate you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, man, I appreciate you guys for having me, man, definitely.
Anthony, we are going to set the intention to podcast with you in person. When we do, because it will happen, we will bring Cheez-Its, and can we get you to sign them when we bring the Cheez-Its?
Hey, I'm all day, man.
We love it. All right, my man. Well, we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Give love to the family from us, and we will chat with you soon, my friend.
All right, man. Take care.
You as well.
Thank you, Anthony. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for listening to another episode of the Hyper Conscious Podcast.
Going hyperconscious will absolutely change your life, because if you understand why something is the way it is, now you have the power to change it. If you going hyperconscious with us has changed your life in any way, please share this episode with one of your friends, because the more people that go hyperconscious, the better this world's going to be for everybody.
And if you would kindly leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, that would help us make more people hyperconscious, and we would be greatly appreciative.
Thank you.
Bye.